This video will cover writing bibliographic citations for periodical articles, that is, articles published in journals, magazines, and newspapers, and it follows the 7th edition of the MLA Handbook, which came out in 2009. Here's a rundown of the information you'll need in order to write up a complete MLA citation for an article from a journal, magazine, or newspaper. So be sure you note all of this down as you gather up your sources. You'll need the author of the article, the title of the article, information about the source publication, and that includes the title of the journal, magazine, or newspaper, the issue in which it was published, and the page numbers. If you retrieve the item from a database of articles, you'll also give the database title. Then there's some additional access information. MLA always requires you to state the medium of publication for articles. This will usually be either print or web. For anything that you do obtain from the web, you'll also give the date you accessed it. MLA recommends not including URLs in the citation, but instructors may require it. Now let's take a look at some specifics. MLA citations always start with the authors. The first author is given last name first. Any other author's names go in normal order. Notice the comma and the and before the second author's name. Articles in professional journals often have many authors. If there are up to 3, name them all. If there are more than 3, just name the first author and then use et al., which is that stands for et alia, and that's just the fancy Latin way of saying and others. Now, if there's no author named, you would just leave it out and start your citation with the next piece. And the next piece is the title of the article. The title of an article goes into quotation marks to show that it's part of a larger item, and it ends in a period. If your title ends with an exclamation point or a question mark, then that replaces the period. Titles in MLA go in title case. Most of the words are capitalized, all except articles such as a and the, conjunctions like and or but, and prepositions like of and on. Notice the subtitle in the journal article and that the subtitle is set off with a colon. Now we start on the publication information, beginning with the title of the magazine, journal, or newspaper that the article was in. The periodical title is italicized and in title case. Now do notice that there's no period at the end of the periodical title. Also notice that we drop any initial "the" from a title. So we use Journal of Popular Culture rather than the Journal of Popular Culture. Similarly, we use Oregonian rather than the Oregonian. For newspapers, you will also give the city's name and the state abbreviation in square brackets. There is an exception, of course. You don't give the city and state if it's a very well-known city and the city's name is part of the title. For example, if it were the Seattle Times or the San Francisco Chronicle. The next part of the publication information is to tell your reader which issue of the periodical the article appeared in. Here's where we'll have some differences in the different types of articles. For magazines and newspapers, we give the date of the issue in day, month, year format. This magazine comes out monthly, so we only know the month and the year, so that's all we give. But for a weekly or a daily publication like the Oregonian, just the month isn't enough to tell us which issue the article appeared in, so now we include the day as well. Some newspapers come out in more than one edition every day, so if an edition is stated, include that as well, abbreviated to ED. MLA uses 3-letter abbreviations for most months. There's a few exceptions, of course. June and July are spelled out in full, and September, for some reason, gets a 4-letter abbreviation instead of a 3-letter one. Now, the case for the journal is just a little bit different. For scholarly journals, MLA uses volume point issue notation instead of the date. And then we follow with the year in parentheses. So this article appeared in volume 42, issue number 2 of the Journal of Popular Culture. Next come page numbers. You'd think page numbers would be pretty straightforward, and most of the time they are, but there are just a couple of complications you should be aware of. Here's one. Notice that we drop the hundreds digit from the end of the page range unless, of course, it changes. And here's another. Look at the newspaper. If the page number shows the section of the newspaper, such as A1, D3, so forth, that's all you need, so that's all we provide. But in some newspapers, each section is just numbered 1, 2, 3, and so forth, and in that case, you have to let your reader know whether it was page 2 of the travel section, or page 2 of the business section, or whatever. Now, if you used an actual hard copy print edition in your hand, you're almost finished. All you have to do is add the medium of publication, which is print. However, all of these were actually retrieved from databases in electronic formats, so they were actually delivered over the web, and so we include web as the publication medium. And since I access these articles from databases, MLA requires us to give the database title as well. And that actually comes before the medium of publication. Database titles are italicized and in title case, and they are followed by a period, unlike the periodical title. The magazine and the journal both came from a database called Academic Search Premier, which is one of many databases we purchased from a company called EBSCO. Now, MLA used to require both the database title and the vendor company, but now it's just the database title. So if you're used to the old style, remember now to leave EBSCO out of your citation. The newspaper article came from a database called Access World News. Now, that's from a company called Newsbank, and again, we just give the name of the database and leave out the vendor. The last thing MLA requires, because we access these in electronic format, is the date on which we obtained the article. Now, when it comes to URLs, MLA style prefers not providing the URL in the citation. The idea is that the URLs tend to change around anyway, so that usually the reader is better off just searching for the article by its title. But MLA gives two exceptions. Provide the URL if your reader is likely to have trouble finding the item without it, and provide the URL if your instructor requires it. So be sure to ask your instructor whether you should include URLs in your citations for web items. If you do decide to give the URL, it goes in angle brackets at the very end of the citation, and it is followed by a period. We'll wrap up with a look at how to cite published articles you find out on the web rather than in one of our article databases. For peer-reviewed journals, this is really straightforward. You just give all the standard information, the authors, the title of the article, the title of the journal, the volume, the issue, the year, and the page numbers. There's no database involved, so we just say we found it on the web. The publication medium is web, and we give the access date. One complication is that with articles published out on the web, you'll often find that page numbers are not given. In this case, MLA requires us to state NPAG, that's the abbreviation for no pagination, where the page numbers should have been. For magazine and newspaper articles retrieved from a publication's own website rather than from an article database, it's a little different. MLA tells us to cite these using their rules for citing web pages rather than the rules for citing the articles. The difference is that in the publication information, instead of giving the magazine title, we're giving the website title. It's often just a little bit different from the magazine title itself. For example, here the title of the website is nationalgeographic.com. That's not a URL, that's the title of the website. We then give the publisher of the website, in this case that's the National Geographic Society, the date of the publication, and finally the medium of access and our access date. Similarly, for a newspaper article from the newspaper's own website, we give the title of the website. In this case, it's the same as the title of the newspaper. And then we give the name of the publisher, and again, that happens to be the same as the name of the newspaper in this case. Give the date of the publication, the publication medium, and the access date. Okay, that's a whirlwind tour of the basics and a few complications of MLA citations for periodical articles. There's lots more help available on this. The librarians have prepared some handy guides for our most commonly used types of resources. You can pick one up at the reference desk, or from the library's website you can open up the link for research guides and then scroll down to term paper helps, and you'll find our MLA decoder and our MLA examples. If you've got a complicated item, feel free to ask us at the reference desk. We'll help you look it up in the MLA handbook. Even better, the staff at the Writing Center can help you. And of course, as always, ask your instructor.